Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are diving into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and anyone who has ever wondered how a small piece of everyday change could end up being worth over $1.5 million. And the spotlight today falls on the 1990p Jefferson nickel. A 5-cent coin that on the surface looks like any other nickel you might get in your pocket change at a store, but hidden within its design, its strike, its composition, and the history of its minting are errors, mistakes, and quirks that have propelled it into legendary status among numismatists, making it one of the most desirable and valuable modern coins. And as we dig into this story, you'll see why a nickel, worth only 5 cents to the everyday person, could command a price tag that rivals luxury cars, expensive houses, or high-end jewelry. Because when rarity meets error, and when collectors' demand collides with the almost mythical circumstances behind the coin, the value skyrockets beyond reason. So let's talk about the 1990p nickel in detail and peel back every layer of what makes it so special, starting with the basics that this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the P Mint mark, and although millions of Jefferson nickels were produced that year, one particular run contained minting flaws that were so extreme, so eye-catching, and so unexpected that they changed the destiny of those few surviving examples forever. And the intrigue begins with the striking process itself, where the dies, which are the hardened steel pieces that press the coin design onto blank planchets, were misaligned and improperly prepared, resulting in double strikes, weak strikes, off-center strikes, and in some cases partial images that gave the coin an almost ghostly appearance. And such dramatic errors are often destroyed at the mint before release, but somehow a handful slip through into circulation, and this is where the magic happens, because those slips are the very reason we now have a story worth telling. And one of the key features reported on the legendary $1 million specimen is a dramatic double die obverse, meaning that the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front appears with double details around the facial features, the hair, the inscriptions, and especially in the motto and the word liberty, and collectors go wild for doubled dies, because they are direct evidence of a major mistake in the die-making process, essentially freezing the accident into history. But that is not all, because this same specimen also displayed a warped planchet, with improper metal flow leaving ridges and ripples across the surface, creating a unique texture that makes the coin appear alive when tilted under light. And then there's the matter of striking pressure, which on this piece was uneven, giving one side of the coin sharp relief and the other side a weak, mushy strike, almost as if the coin were half finished, a bizarre and captivating effect that no regular production coin should have. And when you add all of these elements together, the doubled obverse, the warped planchet, the uneven strike, the possibility of die cracks branching out like veins across Jefferson's cheek and around Monticello on the reverse, you start to see why this one nickel stood out so dramatically when discovered. And scarcity is everything in numismatics, because while millions of 1990p nickels exist, only a handful with such extreme errors have survived, and among those only one has emerged with the combination of features so spectacular that it was deemed virtually priceless, driving the hammer price at private auctions and high-end sales to a staggering $1.5 million. A number that might sound crazy until you realize that collectors are not just buying metal but history, rarity, and bragging rights, the chance to own something no one else in the world has. And the possibilities behind how this era was created add more intrigue, because some theories suggest a mint worker accidentally allowed a damaged die to keep striking, or that the wrong die pairing was used, or even that the coin blank itself was of slightly off metal composition due to contamination in the metal stock, meaning trace elements of silver or other metals could be present, making metallurgical analysis an adventure in itself. And numismatists thrive on these mysteries, digging through archives, studying strike patterns, comparing with other era nickels, and speculating how such a monumental blunder escaped the mint's tight quality control. And the answer might simply be luck, the kind of rare chance that every collector dreams of when sifting through pocket change or inherited coin jars. Because the idea that something so small could change lives, fund retirements, or make headlines is intoxicating, and it is worth noting that the story of the 1990p nickel is not just about one coin but about the broader fascination with mint errors in general, Because humans are drawn to imperfections, to the idea that even in a massive, precise industrial process something can go wrong and produce beauty in chaos. And in coins that beauty translates to value, so collectors search tirelessly for off-center coins, broad strikes, cap die strikes, double denominations, and transitional errors where the wrong metal was used, but few ever reached a level of legend like this nickel, and when news of its sale spread, it ignited a frenzy among collectors, with thousands of people rechecking their change, digging into rolls of 1990 nickels, and dreaming of stumbling upon another multimillion-dollar treasure. And that is part of the magic, because this story transforms an everyday object into a lottery ticket, reminding us that hidden treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places, and beyond the technicalities. There is also the psychological factor, because owning a coin like this connects someone to history, to the minting process, to the mistakes of the US Mint, and to a community of enthusiasts who understand the thrill of rarity. And while skeptics might argue that paying such sums for a nickel is irrational, the truth is that value is whatever people agree it to be. And when wealthy collectors compete for the chance to own a unique piece of American history, the price soars beyond imagination. And so the 1990p nickel becomes not just a coin but a symbol of how error, chance, and human fascination can elevate something humble into an icon. And as we continue to analyze this legendary piece, we can imagine possibilities of hidden varieties still undiscovered, coins tucked away in boxes, jars, or safe deposit vaults that might carry similar traits, waiting for the right eyes to notice. And that possibility keeps the hunt alive, fueling new generations of collectors. And that is why this coin's story matters so much, because it's not just about money but about curiosity, passion, and the thrill of the unknown. And as long as there are coins in circulation, stories like the 1990p nickel will continue to inspire dreams of discovery. So the next time you get change at the store, remember that even a simple nickel might carry secrets worth millions, because history, error, rarity, and human desire are a combination that can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, and the legend of the 1990p nickel is living proof of that. Alright, let's keep the momentum rolling and welcome you again into the fascinating world of rare coins, because just when you thought the story of the 1990p nickel selling for $1.5 million was the peak of numismatic excitement, along comes another tale that proves lightning can strike twice, and this time it's the 2011p Jefferson nickel. Another 5-cent piece that in certain rare era varieties has been valued and traded for astonishing amounts, with one spectacular specimen fetching around $1 million due to its combination of striking mistakes, rarity, and undeniable allure to collectors who thrive on owning the unownable. And the story of this coin, while more modern, carries all the drama and intrigue of the 1990p, showing us that even in the 21st century with advanced technology, lasers, digital design, and tighter quality control, errors can still slip through, and when they do, they have the power to rewrite what we think we know about modern coinage, because the 2011p nickel, minted in Philadelphia, should have been an ordinary strike, hundreds of millions churned out for daily use, yet within that sea of circulation emerged one stunning piece that defied expectations, and its journey from mint to million-dollar sale is the kind of story collectors dream of telling. So let's peel it apart carefully. Because the magic of this coin lies not only in the mistake itself but in the mystery of how it could happen in an era where mistakes are supposed to be caught before leaving the mint, and it begins with the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes the coin, because evidence suggests that the million-dollar 2011p nickel was struck on a misprepared planchet, possibly of the wrong alloy or with improper treatment. And under close analysis, experts have pointed out unusual coloration, texture, and weight that deviate from standard nickel-copper composition, which alone could make it an exotic transitional error. But that is only the beginning, because the strike itself was off-center, dramatically so, with about 15 to 20% of the design missing and shifted into the rim, creating an eye-catching asymmetry that immediately makes the coin stand out. And then comes the double die effect seen in the inscriptions, especially around the words "I in God we trust" and "Liberty," where the letters appear doubled, shadowed, and ghostly. A classic collector favorite because it demonstrates a true die-making mishap. And as if that weren't enough, The reverse of the coin showing Monticello exhibits die cracks running like lightning bolts across the building's roof and down through the columns, turning what should be a clean architectural design into a fractured, almost war-torn look, something that numismatists adore because it tells a vivid story of the die's deterioration, and all of these elements together, the misprepared planchet, the off-center strike, the doubled die, the dramatic die cracks, combine into one of the most spectacular modern-era nickels ever discovered, a true freak of minting nature, and collectors immediately recognized its significance because while minor errors appear every year, a coin with this many dramatic, visible blunders surviving in gem condition is virtually unheard of in recent decades, especially from a mint as technologically advanced as Philadelphia in 2011. And that scarcity, coupled with the drama of its appearance, drove the price up as wealthy collectors competed for the right to own what some call the crown jewel of modern nickels, eventually pushing its value to a jaw-dropping $1 million, and the possibilities behind how it was created continue to fuel debate, with some experts arguing that a misfeed of the planchet into the press caused the off-center strike, while others believe a defective die was left in use too long, compounding flaws onto a single coin. And still others wonder if the alloy mix-up in the planchet points to a transitional error, perhaps struck on leftover blanks intended for another denomination, which would elevate its rarity even more. And the fascination here is not only with the error itself but with the era, because collectors have long believed that major errors belonged to older coins from the 1950s, 1960s, or even earlier, when minting was less controlled. But the 2011 P nickel proves that extraordinary errors can and do still occur, and this fact reignites the hunt for other modern treasures, because if one spectacular error could escape in 2011, who knows what else might still be hiding in rolls, jars, or bank boxes today, and that thrill is what keeps collectors searching, rolling coins by hand, studying magnified surfaces, chasing the dream that maybe they too will stumble upon the next $1 million nickel, and beyond its technical features the coin represents something symbolic. A reminder that perfection is never absolute, that even in an age of machines and automation human error, chance, and randomness still shape outcomes, and that imperfection, paradoxically, can become the most perfect thing for collectors seeking the rare and the unique. So the 2011 P nickel joins the pantheon of legendary modern errors, standing alongside the 1990 P, not only as an object of value but as a story, a conversation piece, and a beacon of hope to coin hunters everywhere, because just like its predecessor it turns the mundane into the extraordinary and proves once again that sometimes the smallest things can hold the greatest treasures. The world of Jefferson nickels and rare minting errors has more treasures to reveal and more astonishing stories to tell, and as we move from the 1990 P nickel that shocked collectors with its multimillion-dollar value and then to the 2011 P nickel that proved modern errors can still reach the $1 million mark, we now step into the next chapter of the hunt for numismatic legends, where ordinary 5-cent pieces transform into coveted prizes worth fortunes, and the beauty of this journey is that each coin tells a story not only about minting technology and human error but also about the excitement of discovery and the unquenchable thirst collectors have for rarity. And in this continuing saga the next coin worth our attention is the 2000 P Jefferson nickel, a coin that, much like its siblings, should have been a simple everyday strike but instead emerged with errors so striking, so undeniable, that its auction value soared into the high six figures, nearly touching the $1 million ceiling. And what made this 2000 P so valuable was a once-in-a-lifetime double-denomination error, where instead of being struck on a proper nickel planchet it was mistakenly struck on a Jefferson dollar blank, meaning the design of a nickel was pressed onto the metal meant for another denomination entirely, creating a bizarre hybrid that collectors instantly recognized as historic. And the resulting coin carried not only the portrait of Jefferson but faint ghost-like impressions of the Sacagawea dollar design underneath, a layered accident that should never exist but somehow slipped past quality control, and the survival of such a piece is a miracle because most double-denomination errors are caught, destroyed, or simply never make it into circulation, but when this one surfaced it became an instant headline, reminding everyone that even in the new millennium the minting process was not immune to mistakes, and what truly drove the price up was the coin's pristine condition. because errors are often damaged, scratched, or worn by the time they're noticed. But this one survived in gem state, shining brightly as a once-in-a-generation find, and the bidding war among wealthy collectors elevated it to nearly $1 million. And the mystique around this coin lingers because it raises the question of how many other double-denomination errors might be out there undiscovered. Perhaps sitting quietly in collections, misidentified, or simply waiting in an old roll of change, fueling the imagination of every treasure hunter who dreams of holding lightning in their hands. And from there we move to another extraordinary example, the 1942 P wartime nickel, which under normal circumstances is a relatively common coin struck in an alloy of copper, silver, and manganese due to World War II shortages, but among them exists one of the rarest transitional errors of all time. A 1942 piece struck on the standard copper-nickel planchet instead of the wartime silver alloy, a true crossover mistake in metal composition that should never have left the mint, and when such a piece appeared it immediately drew collectors' eyes, and in top-condition examples have sold for hundreds of thousands, with speculation that one pristine specimen could easily fetch $1 million today. And the error here lies not in the strike or the design but in the very core of the coin's substance, making it a metallurgical anomaly. And anomalies are golden in numismatics because they speak to history, to the chaos of changeovers at the mint, to the very human story of adapting coinage in times of crisis. And the 1942 transitional nickel embodies all of that, connecting us to an era where every ounce of nickel metal was needed for the war effort, and yet somehow a small handful of old planchets got struck and escaped into circulation, surviving as silent witnesses to history and now as some of the most expensive nickels ever known. And we cannot overlook another fascinating piece, the 1939 double-die reverse nickel, famous for its strong doubling in the word Monticello and the phrase 5 cents, which created an instantly visible and highly collectible variety. And while many exist in lower grades, finding one in flawless uncirculated condition is so rare that when they surface they command prices well over 6 figures, and experts speculate that a truly pristine, sharply struck example with full steps on Monticello could easily cross the $1 million threshold. If offered